So in general, we have so far looked into like, how do we store the values? Okay. So how do we store the values with the help of like what kind of data types that we are using and what is that variable that we use to store the value? Okay. So let me just take an example. For instance, I want to store multiple values, okay, of similar data type. Okay, multiple values of similar data type. For example, I want to store in 5 values, like 5 values and of data type int, okay, integer. So if I say 10 int b is equals to 20, int c is equals to 30, int a is equals to 40, and int e is equals to 50. Okay, so this is for some for some reasons. Okay, this is okay if you want to store only for values that we have, like for 5 values, I just want to store in 5 variables. Okay, but what if you have like 100 values that I want to store? For example, I want to store till 100. Okay, then is it a feasible way for storing the values of similar data type? And we have like, let us assume like this is the variable. It will not allow for me like, duplicate variable value cannot be. So we cannot create a duplicate variable. Okay. So that is the reason why I'm just taking the different variable name and the similar data type. Okay. This is not feasible. So now what are we going to do is like, for this reason, we are going to store in a single type of single variable type and of similar data type, and with the number of values that you want to store. Okay. We have to give the size of the size of the values that you want to store. Okay. So for this reason, we are going to go with the arrays. Okay. Arrays are like, in simple term, if I call arrays like a collection of homogeneous elements, that is nothing but of similar data type. Okay. Of similar data type. Okay. It's kind of like a collection of similar type of elements. So like which has like, some memory allocated for that. Okay. So how do we define the arrays? Is like we can call arrays like collection of similar elements. Arrays collection of similar. Okay, so how do we define it? So we have to have the data type. So what is the syntax of defining the arrays? Like data type, and we should have the variable name and uh, two brackets that we are going to use. Like one is like open square, another one is closed square. Okay, so is equals to. Then we have to use a new keyword for creating the size of that. Okay, of data type. Okay, what is the data type? Data type of size. Okay, so this is how we'll be defining the arrays. So example is like int a is equals to new a of some 100. Sorry, data type 100. Okay, so this is how it works actually. So now you can see that we can store the values till 100, and we have some conditions here. So the value starts storing from the index as 0. Okay, so 0. So that means like first element will be stored in 0th index, and second element will be stored in first index, and third element will be stored in second index. Okay, so likewise it will store till, if we have like 100 values that we need to store, so it will store the 100th element in the 99 index. Okay, so like this it will store. So how this will be stored internally is like, let us consider this simple example here. So we have a sequence of storage, and if let us take like I want to store 5 values. Okay, so it's going to okay. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so these are the indexes. So what is the length of it? How do we find the length of it? So for example, if we have how many values that we want to store? We want to store 5 values. The length of it is like 5. Okay, so we can call this like a length. So now how do we store the values? Let us take like in the 0th index, I have value 10, and at the first index, I have value 20, and second index, I have value 30, and here I have 40, and here I have 50. Okay, so now you can see what is the size of it. Its size is like length is like 5, and the values we have stored is like 5 values, and index starts from 0. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is how the elements will be stored as part of like arrays. Okay, what is array? It's a collection of similar type of elements. Okay, similar type of elements. For example, if I am defining integer, I need to only store I need to store only integer type of data. Okay, so for example, if I want to store, how do we store the values now? So we have defined the size and we have specified that this is a data type that we want to use. Now, how do we store the values? Like array of 0 is equals to 10, array of 1. So that's the thing, but I'm just giving the index and the value. Array of 2 is equals to 30, array of 3 is equals to 40, and array of 4 equals to 50. Okay, so this is the index and this is the variable name, and what is the data type that we have defined is like integer data type. Okay, so let me just write it as like int equals to new int of 5. Okay, so I have 0 is equals to 10. Now we can see this is how we'll be defining the arrays. Okay, so how do we declare the array? This is like int is equals to new. So which are like valid. I'm just showing you like int. Next we have like int space or without. So these are like few kinds of declarations, but you can go with the default declaration. Okay, so this is how we'll be declaring. Okay, so let's go and see the example of this. So here I'm going to create a separate package. Package is kind of a container. Okay, so we're going to write array programs. Declare a main method. So inside this, I'm going to define taking 5. Okay, so here I need to store the values. System equals to 20, 3 equals to 40, 30, 4 equals to 40. Okay, so we have stored the values now. I want to print the values. So now you can see that how many iterations that we have to have for this printing the values of an array. So here we can go with the for loops because we know that the size length of this particular array. So how do we retrieve the elements of this array is like I is equals to 0 because it starts from index 0, right? Int I is equals to 0, I is less than length a dot length. Okay, so this is what we have to use I plus plus. Okay, So now what is the index? Index is 0. So length is like, what is the length of it? We have 5 length. But what is the index we have here is like, how many indexes we have here? We define it as like 3. Here 4. Okay. So how many indexes we have? We have 4 indexes here, and the values is like we have 5 values. So length is like 5. Okay. So let's go and try to print this values now. So how do we print? We have to give the index. Okay. To get the value of it, you have to give the index. So how does this exactly store in internally is like, here you can see the index a of 0. Okay. If I say a of 0, it's going to bring this value. So that's nothing but 10. So how it would be referring is like internally, you will be referring like this a of 0. Okay. So a of 0 will be referring like this. So this is how it will be referring. A of 0 is like 10. A of 1 is 20. A of 2 is 30. A of 3 is 40. A of 4 is 50. Okay. So let's go and try to execute this values. I'm going to just give the A of 5. So I got the values. Okay. 10, 20, 30, and 40. So how do we declare this array? This is array declaration, and this is like value assignment, and this is like the for loop that we are going to use to retrieve the values from the array. Okay. So how do we define it? So we have to define it from the index 0, because the value starts storing that particular. Okay. The value starts storing at the indexes, like, it will start from 0. So it will carry on from 0 to till the value that you assign. Okay. So whatever value you have. If, for example, if we define anything which is like, which we don't have the size. Okay. So then you see what happens now. So now we don't have this size, right? So here, what is that size that we have specified? The length is like 5, but we are exceeding that. Then what happens is like, it's going to throw the exception. That's nothing but index out of 1 exception. So it says like, you are trying to store the value which is not defined, and you are trying to retrieve that value at the same time. So that is the reason why it is throwing that index out of 1 exception. Okay. So then we'll discuss about in detail about what is this exception, how do we handle this. Okay. So now the other thing is like, what is mandatory here? So mandatory is like arrays are defined size. We have like, we have to definitely give the size of the array. Okay. So during declaring the array, okay, this is nothing but we are defining or declaring the array, right? So if I don't give size, so it's going to throw the error. So mandatory, this is like mandatory for defining the array. Okay. So during the array, assigning our declaring the array. So then what we do is like, we have to define the size. So it says like variable must provide either dimension expressions or any array initializers. Okay. So if you don't define, it's going to throw the error. Okay. Let us consider I've given the 10 now. Okay. But how many values that we have stored? We have stored only 5 values. What happens with the rest of the values? It's like it will take the default values. What is the default value of integer? It is 0. Okay. So rest of the things are like, it will print 0. But how many spaces that we have, like, what is the size that we define? And what are those elements which are stored as part of like size, like length, that will be shown here. Okay. So here you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So in 9 indexes, 0 to 9, we have like 10 elements that are stored. If any element is not stored, then what it does is like, it's going to give the default. Okay. So this is one way of declaring the array. I'll show you the another way. I'm going to write a simple program here. Take while. Simple program since block of code. Array. Array 1. Here I'm going to. So this way, this is like one way of defining the array. And the second is like, so now it's like, it's very hard, right? So if you have hundreds of values here, for example, if you need to store as part of array, then this is not a feasible approach. Then what I'm going to do is like, I'll delete this. Here in the single line, I'm going to give the values. Okay. So this is Easy, right? Now I can see that a lot of lines of code is reduced now. Okay. So create an object. A. Array 1. Okay, so it's similar way. Only thing is like I just this is another style of declaring the array and assigning the values for this particular variable, okay, of data type integer. I'm going to execute it, so you'll get the same output, like it's going to print the values of that particular array. Okay, so here you can see I've just differentiated with a star, and you can see these values that are printed as part of arrays. Are you clear with this, guys? So this is one approach. I'll show you the another approach also. So here I'm going to put 3. See, how does it exactly do is like internally it's going to assign the values in this way. Okay, so if you don't write this, it will also work. I mean, like it is similar to the way that we have defined in array 2. Okay, so now you can see, wait, execute this, we'll get the output. Okay, so this is also fine and this is also fine. Okay, are you clear with this, guys?
Yes, Shripal.
Okay, so this is okay when we want to use some set of, like for example, we saw some errors here, right? So I'm going to define like a of 5, 60. Okay, what is the size? Size is like I've defined 10 here. I'm going to remove it and I'm going to put it as like 5. 6 is equals to 70. Okay. When I execute this program, you see the error here. Because we have defined size 5 and we are trying to store more values. Okay, more values. We don't have any other space wherein I can store some values here. Okay. So now I think now when we are trying to do this, so we have a length, a dot length is defined 5 and we have some other values which are stored as part of like index. So it is throwing like, there is no value and you are trying to fetch those values. Okay. To avoid such confusions, what we are going to do is like, we are going to use advanced for each. Okay. So what it does is like, so how do we define is like for integer, what is the data type that you have defined for declaring the array and a. Okay. So now go and try to use it. Okay, so what is this? It's the advanced for each, but still we are getting the index value. Okay, so let's do one thing. What I'm going to do is like, here it is already defined. I'm trying to declare the values which we don't have any spaces in it. Okay, sorry, I mean like the memory is not available for this. Okay, so in this case it is showing the error. But what if I'm going to use some 10 here and try to print the values? So it is going to do the same thing, right? Same thing for the like we have a traditional approach, and this is like latestly which is introduced. Okay, for each this is nothing but it will directly take the data type. It will we have the variable and it's going to store this value one and like one after the other, and it's going to store and it's going to display this. Okay, to avoid this set of things, if you are defining some values here, so this set of things would be like occurring. So we may not know, right? Because compiler would definitely see this is a valid one, but when we are executing this, we get the runtime exceptions. That is nothing but we are getting array out of one index exception. So to avoid this, we are going, and like most of the times we are not going to declare values like this. We are going to declare values like this. Okay. So let me take the same value here and try to execute it in terms of using the advanced for each. Otherwise, I'm going to add this code here. Just I'll comment this particular piece of code and I'll try to execute it. Okay, so now you see, so it is doing the same job that we have done with the traditional approach. This is like you want to do some actions on that particular element, then we are going to go with the traditional approach. but otherwise it is okay if we have to just take some value and if we want to check for this. Okay, so if some value is like a is equals to some value we have defined like 40, I want to check where is that 40 available and what is the index of it. And yeah, I mean, if you want to get that value and you want to do some set of operations on it, then we can go with the traditional approach. Otherwise, it is like this approach will work fine. So if you want to retrieve the values and you want to use them for other set of operations. For example, you can see, I want to do some b plus b. So what is that happening now? 20 plus b plus b. So likewise, if you want to do some actions, then you are going to use this. Okay. So otherwise, it is fine. You can go with and you go and use with the go and use this traditional approach. Okay. So here we can able to see that index out of one exception. But here sometimes you see we have, if we are specifying something, let me just miss out some set of condition here. Okay. So here I'm putting as array dot length minus 1. Okay. Less than or equal to array dot length. Okay. So now go and execute this. Let me just comment this code. So what is that we got here? So index 7 out of 1 exceptions, because so it is trying to print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 indexes. And finally, we have what is that value that we are getting here is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, here, not here. Yeah, here. In the array 2. Okay. So I just wrote the same arrays here. So array 3 and array 2. So in array 2, you can see less than or equal to a dot length. Okay. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what is the size of this length of this array? It is 7. Index is 6. So when I say 7, this value becomes 7. And what is this value? Array dot length. So it becomes 7. 7 is less than or equal to 7. So but we don't have any any value stored at this index. That is nothing but at the 7th index we don't have any value. So that is the reason why it is showing that index 7 out of bounds for the length 7. Okay, so this sort of confusion, like this sort of logical missing that we can ignore when we are going to use the advanced for each. Okay, so what it will do is like internally it will take care of this condition checking. So now you can see it's going to print the data without any error. Okay, so this is easy to use, but when you want to do some set of actions or operations on elements at different positions or different index, then we can go and use the traditional approach. Otherwise, this will be fine for using this. Okay? So fine for using the fine for retrieving the elements from the arrays. Okay, so this is advanced for each. Okay, are you clear with this, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll see some set of examples, exam programs that will be asked as part of interviews. So I want to find out the maximum and minimum element in an array. Okay. Maximum and minimum elements in array. Right, main method. So here I'm declaring an array. So we have some values like 30, 10, 20, 55, 2, 3, 1. Okay. Can you tell me what could be the logic for this now? How do we compare the values of an array? Any guesses?
If else.
So first what I need to do, I need to compare these values, right? So I need to compare this value with this one, this value with this one, this value with this one. Okay. So if anything is like if I find anything is like maximum element that I want to store it in a variable. Okay. So how do I do it now? So I need to run the iteration. Okay. So for running the iterations, what are we going to write now? Int I is equals to 0. I is less than a dot length I plus plus. Okay. So to get the values from the array, what I need to do? I need to give the variable name along with the index. Okay. What is the variable name? A of I is like the value that it will retrieve. Okay. Variable name is A and the index is like I. Okay. So this is fine. I got the variable, but I need to compare with something else so that I can assume that, okay, this is the minimum and this is the maximum value for this. Okay. So what I can do here is like I'm going to take two variables. Okay. So max, and I'm assuming that A of 0 would be the maximum value and minimum value is like A of 0 is like minimum value. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is like I'm going to compare this. Okay. So if max value is less than A of I, then what I can do is like max is equals to A of I. Else if I'm going to check the condition, minimum value is greater than A of I. So then min is equals to A of I. So I'm going to, this is very simple, right? So what I did, so I've taken like, these are the, first time thinking like this is the maximum value. Okay. And second thing is like, I'm thinking the same, 30 is like minimum value. I'm taking the first value, I'm comparing with these values. If this one is less than this one, then what I'm doing is like, I'm just swapping those values. That is nothing but min is equals to A of I. So what is A of I? So A of I will be 30 first. Okay. That is nothing but just it's comparing the values. Okay. So now you can see maximum value. What is the maximum value? So here first it will take 30. 30 is less than 40. Then max is equals to 40. Then it will compare with the next value. 40 is less than 10. No. So it will not do anything. And it will go and check for this next element. Okay. So it will check here. What is the minimum value? 30. 30 is greater than 10. Yes. So what I'm going to do is like min is equals to 10. That's nothing but I'm just storing this value, like 30 is replaced with 10. So likewise, it will do the comparison. Hand in hand comparison will be done. And if anything is like less than the max value, then it will be replaced. So if anything is like greater than the minimum value, that will be like it will be replacing this value. Okay. So let's go and execute this program and see what is the output. Okay, we not define anything. So here I'm going to write a statement. Max value. Are there any other approaches that we can go ahead with this? It's not the only approach that we can go with the other approach. So what is the maximum value here? 50. Fine. What is the minimum value? Is like 1. Okay. So it can be anything else. You can do any sort of we can define any number of values that you want to define, but it will still go and find this. Okay. That's simply, it's very simple. So we assume this one as like minimum and maximum. Then we'll compare with the values here. Okay. So this for loop is like kind of loop. What it is like, it's going to take one value at a time and it's going to compare this. Okay. So this is the logic, simple logic that we have written here. Okay. Are you clear with this, guys?
Yes.
So let me know if I can repeat it again. So only the thing is like I'm just assuming minimum and maximum values as like first element. Then this first element is compared with the elements here. And how do we compare these elements? So here we have like number of iterations. So this will be compared with this. This will be compared with this. So likewise, we are going to do the comparison. If we have this is the condition, but what we have specified here. If this condition is true, then it's going to assign that maximum value is equal to A of I. That's nothing but It's going to check for the index, the value that we have stored as part of arrays, and it will compare with the max value. That's nothing but the value that we have here. So again, it's like if it is less than that value, then it will replace. If it is not that, then it will take the next value and it will compare the values. Okay. So likewise, the swapping will be done. Okay. Are you clear with this, guys?
So
Yeah.
can you please explain any of one of the example for other data type?
What is the data type that you want to use now? So you want to use float or double?
Float. So,
So what it says, like you can typecast this because we have the values index 0. So 0.0 is not the value. So but what we are getting here is like a dot length that we are picking, try to pick the values. But here I need to define some values. So what is the index value that whatever index that we are going to give it is like integer. Sorry, it's not a float. So now you can see we have some values defined here with this of float type. Okay, so this is the index actually. So it should be of integer type. Okay, so one index, like we start with 0, right? So here can go and execute this program and see what is the output that we are going to get. So we'll put something here like 4, some 6, 7. Really sorry, just I put it here float because iterations would be done on the integer value itself. So because here we cannot have like 0.0, 0.1 like this, okay? So it will not accept that one. So that is the reason it was showing here, okay? Test equals to test dot test here. Got it right? The float values now.
yes, got it.
Okay. So you can define this anything like, whatever. So generally we work with the integers. So if you have any values that we have defined as part of like integers, then it's like generic questions that we have here. But if you want to go with the another data type, that is also quite possible. You can do with the another data type. Okay. Are you clear with this, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see another program for copying the arrays. Okay, copying arrays, array elements. So let's take array elements. So I have array defined here is equals to int a of a of arrays. So arrays are like 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, now I want to store this into the array. How can I do this? What should be the thing we should know? We should know what is the length of this array. Okay, so what is the length of this array? How do we find the length of this array? New int of a dot length. Okay, so now it assumes like whenever we declare any array, so as we discussed, like we have to specify the length of the array. Otherwise, it will throw the error. Okay, if I define like this, like new int, will say that please specify the size, but this error is like a little different. Variable must either provide either dimensional expressions or an array initializer. Okay, so here what we are going to do is like I want to store these values into the B array. Okay, if I say I'm not sure like what is the size of it. If I said 10, for example, down the line they may have like elements which are more than 10. Then what happens? We'll get the array index out 1. So that is the reason what I'm going to do is like I'm going to take the length of that particular array where I want to store the values. So how do I do it now? I'm going to take a simple statement, that's nothing but a. Then what I'm going to do is like, can I use this array? Do I need to iterate with the index? Okay, so what I will do is like I'll first try to store the values, then we'll see what are the different outputs. Okay, so int I is equals to 0 because we have to start from the index 0, right? So that is the reason why I'm just taking I is equals to 0 and I is less than a dot length. Sorry, then next we have like a plus plus. Then how do you store the values now? We have to store based on the index. So that is the reason why we are taking vr5 equals to vr5. Okay, so now we got all the values stored in B. Okay, so B, what is that B? B array is like now we got all the values from A array. Okay, so B are like 20, 30, 40, and 50. Okay, so these are the values which we got from the A array. Okay, so this is kind of like iterations that we have. So we are going to store this. So here to get the values from or print the values from B array. So just I'm taking this advanced values. Okay, so let's see what are the output. What is the values? What are the values that we are going to get as well? Here you can see 20, 30, and 40, 50. So which is that array that I'm going to print here? Is like BB. Okay, so there are few other shortcuts that we can use. So instead of using all this first, so there is another method that we can use is like, so this is little advanced, guys, don't worry. So we'll be discussing about this also. We have arrays class. Okay, so arrays class of string that you can use. Okay, so arrays is a class in Java. Okay, so it has got some methods here, so we can use these methods. Now I'll go and print it. So this is another way of printing the values. Okay, so it will show you like all the values of string type. So it is like just showing it in a bracket. This is nothing but the size that we have here, like the values that we have defined, and based on the size, it's going to show up the values in this way. Okay, so this is nothing but copying arrays from one array to other array. Okay, so the simple thing is like we have to take the length of the array that we want to copy. Okay, and pasting array should have this length defined here, so that there could not be any set of exceptions. Okay, so just give me a second, guys. Are you clear with this, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So now the trickiest part is like another thing. We are going to store. I'm going to add one more array here. Okay. So 2 arrays should be stored in a third array. So now method int a of I is equals to 10 comma 30 comma 30 comma 40. And in b of I is equals to some 6. What is that? 50. I want to merge both of them. Okay. Copying in the sense just I'm merging both of the arrays and storing it in a different array. Okay. So int C of I. So all the things should be stored in this array. So how can I do this now? C array is equals to the new. I want to get the size of this array. Okay. I want to specify the size of this array based on the sizes that we have specified for A and B. Okay. So then what I need to do here?
A dot length and B dot length.
A dot length plus B dot length. I got both of the array lengths. I can store the values. Now we have sufficient size which we have defined as part of like C array. Now tell me what is the logic? How can I retrieve the values from this array? I want to store the array. Okay. So first is like it is easy. Int I is equals 0. I is less than A dot length and I plus plus. And then you say that C of I is equals to A of I. So this is fine. Okay. So let's go and try to print it and see what are the values that we are going to get. Okay. So for this, I'm going to use a simple shortcut, that is arrays dot string of C. Make sure this, but rest of the spaces that will get the 0 here. We need to store these values. Now, can you tell me what could be the logic for this? So from where I need to start the index? Now we have stored like 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. We have to start from the index 4. Then what I need to do now?
A of 4 we have to do.
Okay. Index.
I is equal to 4.
I is equals to 4. Do remember, we have, this is like, if this becomes 4, then we have to start the index from 0 in case of I, in case of B. Then if I say 4, then it will throw the index out of bound exceptions. We don't have any elements which are there as part of like, here we have like 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I should start from 4 and B should start from 0. What is the logic that we discussed about? Is like, see, I'll tell you. Okay. So B dot length, B will not disturb anything. But here we are going to change C of I plus what is that value that we have in case of length when we consider A of dot. So this will be like 0 plus 3. What is the length? Sorry, this is the length is like 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3 is the index. What is the length? We have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What is the I value here? 0. Length is 4. Okay. So I will increment and this will be like, it will be constant. So it's like 0 plus 4, 1 plus 4. Likewise, it will keep on adding the values until the condition is false. So V of I, directly we are going to store the values. Okay. Now you see what is happening. So everything got merged. Only the simple logic is like, this is the logic that we have to apply. Okay. So we should start from the index that we have stopped here. Okay. So we have stopped here at 3. That is nothing but what is the length of it? So we'll take the length. Okay, here we don't take the index, but I'm just discussing about like two things here. One is like index, another one is like length. Okay, when I'm talking about like length, I'll take the length here, what number of elements which are there as part of this array. But index, the index starts from 0, right? So I'm going to consider like the elements the values from 0 where the elements are stored. Okay, so this is what we have discussed here, right? So it will start from 0th index, and these are the values and these are length. Okay, so here what I'm trying to do is like I'll take the index here and I'm going to add with the length of that particular array which is already stored as part of C. Okay, so this is done. So we have to start from that particular index where we left it. Okay, is it clear, guys?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so this is how we'll be merging the arrays. So guys, I'll stop it here. So tomorrow we'll be discussing about like how do we find the duplicate elements, how do we sort it, and what are the different dimension of arrays. Okay, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, jagged arrays, and yeah. So there we see that how do we retrieve the elements in different fashions. Okay, when we have a defined set of dimensions, how do we use it? And when we don't have defined set of dimensions, how do we retrieve elements from that particular array? Okay, so we'll see 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and few other programs which are like important programs. Okay, so I'll just give one other example so that if you want to do the rotations actually. Okay, so rotating the elements in an array. So how do we do it? Is like I'll just give the example of left rotation. Left rotation arrays. So based on this example, you have to do the right rotation. Okay, I'll tell you how do we do it. So this is a very simple logic for this. Okay, so just look into this and you can get the idea for the right rotation. Otherwise, we can do it tomorrow, I guess. I'm like, if you need to just go through this examples, right? So we can do it tomorrow. So no worries at all. But here I want to just show you like how exactly the arrays would be working and how do we have the different set of operations that we can do on the arrays. Okay, we'll see that shifting the positions in left rotation, right rotation, duplicate elements, and then it's like how do we sort the elements, how do we swap the elements, and yeah. So within this 2-dimension also, how do we perform the actions? How do we retrieve the elements? So everything we'll see tomorrow. Yeah, I thought like I would just continue with the left rotation, but it would take some time for the explanation. Okay, so we'll try to write the pseudocode for that, and then we can start with the programming. So I'll stop it here. So tomorrow we'll discuss about the rest of the programs. Yeah, guys, I got the credentials. So today you can check it. I'm going to upload all the programs and the documents that we have discussed as part of manual testing. Okay. Have any questions, guys?
You will share it for these programs also on.
Yes. Everything I'm going to upload. Okay. So I'm going to zip it and I'm going to share this. Okay. So all the programs that whatever we have discussed so far, right? So these are the programs that we have discussed. So everything will be zipped and I'll be sharing those programs with you.
Yeah. Okay, Shrikant. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time. Let's meet tomorrow at same time.